speak about new technology and creation toward a new composer-interpret interface report. I make shorter because I know. Behind this theme, the question for me is what means to be an interpret today? I mean, what means to be musician today? How this new technology has totally changed the vision of, and the place of the interpreter on stage, and what are the challenges and prospects that brings these new tools? Of course, you already heard many things from great teacher and so on, and I will speak about my interpreter side, okay, concerning this new tool. So, among questions we have, are we more creative than in the past? Do we play more music? Is the music produced with new technology radically different from those produced with traditional instruments? And is the teaching of music adapted to this new frame? And first of all, I would like to speak about the tool itself and the relation what we can have as interpreter. We know the tool either influences the musical writing. The place of the tool is a question that runs through the issue of the musical creation from Monterrey to nowadays. And this tool is a central link between the composer and his interpreter. It's just an interface, but sometimes it acquires a dominant position. And even more today through the fascinating effects associated to these new tools, whether processing sounds, motion capture, sound spatialization, or interaction with the video. All those approaches are increasingly present and sometimes obscuring artistic discourse. The temptation for a composer to write for the instrument, and by the way, to show the instrumental and technical possibilities, kind of king instrument, or for a specific interpreter, avant-garde musician, is an approach that has historically its heyday in the 19th century. And this temptation is still alive, and it's something absolutely normal, but we have to know that. This has produced very contrasted results, sometimes amazing results, providing that the language of the composer transcends the technical possibility of the instrument, but sometimes it's a disaster, because no real musical ambition overall, just affect no real musical language or vision. And through the Occidental music, we can, I don't make the list right now, but we have a long list of this kind of pieces which have been written for a specific singer, for example, or a specific instrument. In the past, most of the instrumental design development were initiated by the composer himself. For example, corps de basset with Mozart, the Wagnerian euphonium for Wagner, of course, timpani pedal for Bartók, and so on and so on. And in these different examples, the composer is the initiator. A sound he heard, a design, a color, an effect, at first a kind of dream of sound, and the instrument makers have tried to answer to this real artistic demand, always in relation with the interpreter. Nowadays, development of new technology perpetuates this movement. I think that when the piano comes out in the early 19th century, it was no less revolutionary compared to the new technology appearing now. Movement initiated by concrete music, the art of fixed sound by Pierre Schaeffer in 1948. We can also compare both interface, I mean piano and new technology, for the musical and pedagogical opening. Indeed, the piano, through transcription, new repertory, helped to develop some new musical form, new concert concept, but also developing music teaching. Finally, piano was the tool that composers, musicians, teachers waited for a long time. And it's exactly the same thing for the new technology today. But here the comparison ends, because while the piano has its own framework, defined, recognized, even we can always imagine new instrumental approaches, using objects as did John Cage starting from 1938 with Bacchanal. New technology provides an infinite space constantly renewed, every technical development resulting in a lot of few artistic and interpretative approaches. It is precisely this wealth that makes new technology a unique tool in the Western music history. The most important changing is its universality. All over the world, this new technology creates an incredible attraction, all generations together. And it's quite new. To create, to compose, has always required an ability to anticipate, to have a step ahead of the instrument or the interface. Whether it be a piano, a flute, or a computer with synthesis software, Max, Pure Data, Synthetic, and so on and so on. On the other hand, this wealth of sound and signal processing, almost infinite, is also probably the first difficulty and problem for a composer today. Indeed, what could be worse than having a tool without constraints? In what frame we have to work if everything seems to be possible? This is probably the first time in the history of Western music that the instrumental interface can be modified almost entirely in real time to follow the wishes of the composer. And paradoxically, is here one of the dangers of this new technology. In front of this kind of instrument, the composer has to find a good balance between writing for or with the interface. It's so rich that the composer has to define, above all, a frame. What he don't want, maybe first, and what he wants, second. This approach will allow him to progress in his work while hearing attentively to the interface, of course. Otherwise, the interface could write for him. Because too attractive to be refused, too many proposals coming from the interface itself could inspire and could decide in place of the composer. Everything is a question of balance. Whatever the musical form, this is a new relationship with the interface that created a completely new relation inside the musical trio of creation, composer, instrument, performers, interface, performer. With new technology, the interface will take part of the compositional and interpretative act. And by the way, the trio will be questioned and will work totally differently. Today, a composer can't know totally the interface, as he has to know the frame of classical instrument, for example, through his experience or his instrumental practice. The computer tools has become very complex, and so complex, and the composer needs to have a rhythm with him. We spoke about that earlier before. This is a major evolution in the musical creation process. If speaking about interpretation time, we can imagine 3 times. We have, for the interpret, reading the score, learning score, and interpretation. Interpretation means appropriations and performing. And we could imagine for the composer conception, writing, and realization. Why so far the composer occupied almost the entire time of creation, from conception to realization? Today, the composer occupies alone 1/3 of the time of creation, the conception time, because the other 2/3 are realized in cooperation with the rhythm and an interpreter. So it's a very deep changing, and the place of the composer, it's a very deep changing of the place of the composer in the creative process. We have seen, we are changing a kind of paradigm concerning the act of creation itself, and of course the presence of new technology everywhere has a big influence on the new generation of composer and musician in general. We are living, of course, in a global process, and new technology is part of this process. For me, the flexibility access to these new tools, and especially through the dissemination on all media, is probably the most important reasons for this evolution. I would say that it's not just the interface by itself; it's a really global thing, you know. It's not only the tool itself that enables this opening to the creation, but also the access given to hold, to listen, to recall, and so on, as you have seen just before. Those 2 aspects, diffusion everywhere from one side, and immediate accessibility to create tools from the other side, remain us a very important thing, that the most important transmission system for music we can have for learning music is oral transmission. You never find a teacher so incredible that you hear. You know, if you don't hear, if you don't have a specific hearing of sound, you can't learn music. And today this transmission has never been easier than ever, and it's very incredible things. For example, today, a 10 years old kid heard more music than us when we had, a long time ago, 40. So then, of course, it gives ideas. Of course, naturally, they listen always music, style, aesthetic, and so on. So, of course, they have a lot of repertoire in their head. And this is a real revolution. First, the proximity to the music constantly around us, and the flexibility of access of new tools to imagine, to dream, and sometimes to create. This provision of music through many new performing tools allows us to observe, it's not something new, of course, we know that, the birth of a new generation of musicians and composers, the emergence of new musical trends that could not exist without this technology, of course. Above all, the most important thing in the creative act in itself, it changes more expanded and open to other specific fields, given another dimension to the act of writing by itself and the relationship with a partner associated to the creation time. Indeed, these tools have really allowed a kind of popularization of the creative act for people who have not necessarily followed a musical cursus. And it's really an incredible change. And by the way, another step is that the composer today is necessarily more open to the various artistic disciplines and by the way, the various aesthetic too. Of course, the other side of this almost infinite technology and fascinating possibility is the risk of a form of standardization in the creation process. But this is finally not new. Composition schools and technical standardization lead us to a common control of a tool. And by the way, reproduce the same model, the same sound effect. It's the first step. And in creation way, we always need a big humus. I mean, something, a big basis, and sometimes something appears. But if we don't have a lot and many experiences and composition and so on, it's much more difficult to create something bit new and different. I had the chance to work for 20 years in IRCAM for a pedagogical cursus, and I've seen the evolution, and I was always surprised at the very beginning that students coming from Chile or Tokyo finally, for the concert, are very similar pieces. So for me, it has been always something very strange. And I think we can be a bit early, but I think it's normal, because before to use a tool, we have to experiment so many things that it's not possible to have when we look, for example, how long is difficult to play violin, for example, and so on. So before to do some things that we feel really, it's very important to control and to know very well the instrument. Concerning now the interpreter in front of new technology, he has to answer to the technological requirements and also to integrate all the phenomena associated with these new interfaces. What is deeply different is that we have to work with a kind of random linked to the new technology itself. Whatever the context, meta instrument, real-time processing, or motion capture, it is random who often change the work with new technology. It's a constantly renewed approach. The range of answers with interface are incredibly more important than an acoustic instrument. Nothing is mechanic, automatic, or systematic. And it's maybe strange because we feel that, okay, with technology it's always the same sound, the same. No, forget it. It's a disaster. It's always something new and different, because this new technology don't use just a physical phenomenon, but many much more phenomenon, and we will see through different examples just now. Concretely, I would like to show you 3 different examples. Oh, Jesus, for a minute. Okay, excuse me. Okay. I will just show you, to speak about 3 forms, I think 3 interesting frames for this kind of thing. First one is Corpuscule, written by Jean Geoffroy, a Korean composer, created in NIRCAM in 2002 for vibraphone, tom-toms, and so on and so on and so on. Here we have in the very classical frame, I mean, I will be a bit later, it's in the classical frame, I mean, it's just augmented instruments, you know, with piezo, with, okay. In 2002, you know, because everybody feels that it's very normal and usual and so on and so on, but it's what kind emergence system, you know. And for Corpuscle, the idea was to transform and to develop, and to imagine a new space for the instruments, okay? And we have two different and original things. The first one, this one, just on vibraphone. The second, so we are just on the vibraphone here, and all this idea was to, when we speak with this kind of technology, we don't play vibraphone with something electronic around it. We play a real new instrument. So the way we play is totally different. And that's why when we work with this kind of instrument, it's always a new one, you know. And we have in percussion, for each piece we have different setup and so on. And the way we will work, for example, dynamically, the way we will hit the bars and so on is definitely different. Another effect was used in this piece, a kind of densification process. I play on octobands, cobbles, and bass drum. What is interesting too in this piece is first when we created it was live electronic, and I asked Jenny to do a patch with fixed sound, okay, with a kick, and I've done that with different composers and so on. Because live electronic you need always all the time a technician in the hall, you know, so it's much more expensive if you want to turn with. And now when I have the chance to work with different composers, I always asked a B plan, you know, I mean a solution to play the piece much more easily. Now I would like to show you a specific. We were in extended instrument. Here we will speak about meta instrument. Gran Casa Canto del Materia, written by Michelangelo Lupone, which is Italian, of course, and we played that in the Festival Musique en Scène in Gram in 2006. So imagine 7 bass drums suspended on a stand, you know, and under you have a speaker of 30 Hertz suspended too, you know. And the pitch of the head is related to the frequency of the speaker. We have some pedals, okay, and what is incredible with this kind of instrument is in front of this interface, we are obliged to develop a new way to be able to play this new instrument. So, hand fingers, physical effect, and so on and so on and so on. And what's the most interesting is rarely we have the possibility to be at the same step with the composer. For example, we start with the same point, you know. And here it was absolutely the frame, because Michelangelo is absolutely amazed by bass drum, so we start during years and years to just make captation recordings with different kind of microphone and so on and so on. And finally, after that, he decides to do it. And first, the first version was we have 7 pedals under the bass drum. And finally, for the final version, we just have 4. And I would like to show you the 4 things. So the first one is physical vibration. So it's just the volume, okay, pedal volume, okay, under the. Come on. For this piece and for the other one just after, the problem of how we write that is very fundamental for me. As interpret, you know, I'm very afraid about the evolution of this kind of repertory if we don't write it. I mean, it could be with sign or draw, I don't know, it's not a problem of how we will do with note and so on and so on. But it's very fundamental. And with Michelangelo, the problem was where we have to play and how we can write that. So we work like sequences. So on the left we had the vision of the skin, I will show you later, with different area where I have to play. And aside that, the same line we had the rhythmical things with musical approach and so on and so on. And this point is very important. So for this, we just play with the volume. So the vibration of the speaker make vibrating the skin of the bass drum. The second one is And it's very important because if we create a new instrument, because it's the diameter of classical bass drum, it's very important to have, for me, to always be connected with the bass of the instrument. I mean, for example, when you remember the vibe part, sometimes you have just the vibe sound, you know, and then transformation. And it will be the same thing for here. So we will work on fundamental and harmonics. So then we have to just show just a few examples of different sound approaching, just to have an idea. Then the last one is the canto. It's a more difficult effect. Just listen. So as you can see, we use some nodes because we can also make mathematic research with pollen and so on just to identify. And with specific feedback system, we have this kind of thing. Okay. Dans 5 minutes. Je sais pas, je vous montre des extraits de live musique. I'm sorry. Donc, parce que vous voulez parler des bouchées pédagogiques. Alors, on va pas faire live, on laisse tomber live. Okay, I just would like to speak about transmission thing. So just some effect with light music, just to see what we can play with speak. Okay. So it's a kind of granulation things. I just the second knife. Come on. Other things. Grab. Recording things. I show you that because I would like to speak about pedagogical tool later. After, for example, 12 seconds, this movement make a reverse things automatically, slack, and now the machine make, and I play rhythmical part inside it. Just to show you that we can control the light too.
Wow.
Okay, also. Okay. No. So now, I would like to speak about transmission and pedagogy very shortly. So pedagogically, I think the chance we have with new technology is, and you mentioned that just before, I think is the problematic of sound. What we miss in our schools is we have to be much more attractive for the students or the pupils, and we have to speak about sound as a matter, you know. And pedagogically, we can imagine different things as my before me told, and with this kind of piece, which is an interface made by, imagined by a composer, we have to do this. We can use that for pedagogical tools, because the first, when a pupil or student comes want to make music, the first things we can do is to invite him immediately on stage, not after years of teaching or learning and so on. Immediately on stage and just without instrument. And with this kind of interface, we can imagine, and we will, do many things concerning lateralization, speed, diffusion, because the audience, of course, in the middle, you have 8 speakers, 2 subs, and so on, so you can transform, change the direction of the sound, and so on, and so on. And what would be amazing is to use artistical project and to find many developments to make a real pedagogical project in front of this. And I think it's very important. The last things I would like to speak before I stop is we work with the Percussion Strasbourg with Orange Lab, which is Orange Forms Laboratory, about a kind of, it's not a real DVD, it's not, no matter the support, is we film, for example, we record a piece, very well known, of the Percussion Strasbourg, for example, a big Xenakis piece, with 8 recording, which, I mean, microphone and camera. Behind each 6, one on stage and one in the hall. And you have on your screen, we work on everything, and you have on your screen all small screens, you know, defined by the camera. And you can choose from where you want to listen to the piece. It's for me, it's a kind of possibility to be interactive with the screen, because most of the time we are like that, wow, and we don't have any possibility to change. And here is the way to transmit our repertoire, you know, because it's important that the new generation knows that, and at the same time they can be an actor of their own listening. And so I would like to speak of that. I think it's okay. I'm sorry, it's too short.
I'm sorry, really, but there are so many